Oh, hello. How are you all doing today? I'm starting to feel better. My voice is a little bit shot, but I'm just here trying to relax. What am I drinking, you ask? Natalie's grapefruit juice. It's very good. Why is it in a wine glass? Because it's funny. All right. Um, yeah. Didn't even bother taking off my robe. Nope. It's it's Friday, folks. Okay. So today I just want to go through um, some of the ideas that people posted and talk about what would make a good idea, what would make a bad idea for this project. It's not a bad idea for a game. It's just maybe too hard or not something I would recommend. And then some like medium dip ones that if you're good at it and you really want to do it, there's no problem. Um, we'll take a look uh, on Monday together. We'll take a look at more in more detail at like the actual requirements, and I'll have sort of like a planned out activity to walk us through that a little bit, um, so that we feel more confident about exactly what we have to do and how to get the points. Because remember, it's all about getting the points at the end of the day. So I'll just share. I've been teaching this for a while, as you know. So I've seen like what makes for like a good project, what makes for a bad project, and I've also seen like the what makes for an easy project, what makes for a hard project. Um, a lot of this comes down to how you write about it too, which we'll talk about, um, especially late, like the second half of May. We'll transition more towards the writing of it. But on Monday, we'll talk through timeline. We'll talk through what you should be thinking about and making sure you put in there so you have something to write about later. Um, and we'll talk more about because class will look a little bit differently. I want to be checking in, uh, scheduling at least two one-on-one conferences with everyone. Now, I have 60 students between the two sections, so that's difficult. But I want to find time, definitely at least one per person, preferably two. And then if you need particular help or want more guidance, then we can do three or four. Um, but I know that we're not in class, so you don't have that. All right, enough about me. What makes for a good create task project? I have a Google question. Um, it's mostly for my own guidance to get us prepped for Monday. Today's an easy day. It's the end of marking period. I'm not feeling the best, though I'm feeling better today. I think we could all use a little bit of a rest at the end of the marking period before we jump into full on May. It's May already. Okay. Some due dates. Google question today for sure. Required meet on Monday. And then try to decide on a project idea by Monday. You can always change it on Monday too. On Tuesday we'll start working. But if our discussion leads you to want to change it, that's fine. But after today, hopefully you have one idea that you really want to do. All right, let's do this. I went through the Google Classroom. Sorry for period 8. I don't know what happened. I forgot to copy paste it over. If you didn't answer yesterday's question, feel free to do that today too. I won't penalize you. It's my bad for missing that. And thank you, Tiffany, for pointing that out. And also, Timothy Chow. So thank you both. Okay, so some great ideas. These are pretty general. A lot of people had really good ideas. These are ideas that I think are both interesting enough to keep to want to make and doable. So any kind of a guessing game. So whether that be like a game of chance, like pick which treasure chest to open. You may need more than one round of that, but you could do that. I'm towing a fine line here. I'm not allowed to tell you what to do. But but we were going to do a discussion like this in class anyway if we were together, where we would talk through about what makes them good and bad. So I feel like this is appropriate for me to go through and talk about general ideas. I'm not saying do or don't do these. I'm just talking about potential ideas you could have. So any kind of guessing game works. That's a great idea. Like some people had the idea to spot the difference. Like you have like the two pictures and some things are a little different. That's a great idea. Any kind of extension of a clicker game is okay. So adding the clicker game we built itself isn't quite enough because we hadn't yet returned to functions, and we're going to find that the idea of a function is actually pretty important. So you can't just turn in the clicker game. You also can't turn in something we did together in class. So unfortunately, you can't build like the color sleuth game exactly. You can't build the clicker game exactly. That is considered plagiarism. And I would return it to you before you submitted it. But you could expand on the idea of a clicker game. It's just a clicker game is just a general game. So there's no reason why you couldn't have score and lives and something. I wouldn't have it bounce around the screen, but you could expand it on something. Internet quizzes, loved it. People had great ideas. Some favorite, like what avatar element are you? Great. Good stuff. It's what Hogwarts house are you? Great, sure. Like, it's all good. Rock, paper, scissors, I think, is difficult. It's the hardest of these, but it's doable. Any kind of calculator, that was a great idea. I saw some people come up with some cool ideas there. Someone else had a calculator with a random number component. That's doable. We have like buttons and it calls different functions to do things. That could work. And anything with dice. We work through some examples of projects that I'll point us to later in the past that like simulated a dice roll. So definitely you could do something like that. Now let's talk about some not so great ideas. That again, not because they're not cool, but because I think they're too hard to do. And we'll talk about why. Games that involve catching something that is constantly moving or falling on its own. Oh, let me add that in. What do I mean by that? Specifically, a few people had the idea of like catching, like say you had a game where, slowly a fruit would fall from the top to the bottom. And you have to click it before it reaches the bottom. Seems simple, seems like a great idea on paper. It's actually very hard in App Lab. Because unlike other things like Scratch or something you may have done in the past, either in my class or just on your own, in like an intro or on your own, we don't have, there is something called a timed loop that you can use, but it slows down the game and it's hard to activate two things at once. So it's hard to both make the thing move down the screen and click on it. It's possible, but I would just say, unless you really want to do it and you're willing to look into, I'll point you at the functions. We'll see we have a full toolbox of things we haven't even seen yet. And I'll point you to how they work, and I can't really help you, but if you want to do anything with moving, that could work, but it's hard. So Space Invaders is really hard. Someone tried to make it before, and they got actually pretty close. People have done cool games involving this, but it's just really hard. So if you have time and you like programming, it's a good challenge. Snake is not exactly the same thing, but Snake is hard when you think about what Snake is. Snake is hard because you have to control like the number of Like, say you just do a basic version with circles that you move around and catch more circles, and it adds it to your tail. You have to think about, what does it mean to hit yourself? What does it mean to, like, gain an extra thing in your like in your body? Those things are really hard. Space Invaders is hard because what does it mean to hit an alien? What does it mean to actually shoot an alien? We don't have something like if laser is touching alien. We don't have that in Code Studio. So it's really good to think about the logic of your games. This is a prime example. What does it mean to shoot an alien? If laser hits alien, what does hits mean? Like, it comes down to if the XY position of this pixel is in a similar X and Y position of your alien, then it was a hit. And that gets complicated pretty quickly. Doable, but hard. Tic-tac-toe, possible. People have done it. But again, think about the logic of what tic-tac-toe is. It's easy to say you win if you get 3 in a row. Okay, but what does 3 in a row mean? Oh, it means horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. Oh, and you have to test every combination to see if it works. It's doable. Again, people have done it. I think, did Simone do that in the past? And she got a 4 in the AP, so she did well. I don't know. I don't remember. I know other people have done it. I know she was working on it, but she might have stopped. Anyway, 2-player games, don't bother. Like, we're in quarantine anyway. Who are you going to play the game with? It's not worth it to make a 2-player game. Make it 1 player. Unless you really need it to be 2 players, you can. But just make it 1 player. And just make it, like, get the best score possible. Or have a win condition. Don't worry about 2 players. Connect 4 is similar to tic-tac-toe. It's actually just a harder version than tic-tac-toe, if you think about it. Where instead of 3 possible things, it's 4. So the number of combinations becomes way harder. Don't do Connect 4. I would say do tic-tac-toe if you want a challenge and you want a cool, like, this is a legitimately very cool game. Let's talk about some hard but doable. So these, I would say, fall in the category of, I wouldn't recommend it to someone who, didn't feel comfortable with the Color Sleuth game, thought that was pretty challenging, which it was, especially if you tried to do it on your own. But if you felt totally good about it, like, then yeah, maybe try one of these. A timed game involves a lot of teaching yourself things. It's not hard, but we haven't learned officially about how time works, especially now that time has stopped. Am I right? In quarantine. So timed games, yeah, definitely difficult to do, but they are doable. This is a big one. So let me tell you a story. In the first year, we offered the course, Kevin Lin made an anime dating sim where you'd pick one of 3 popular waifus in the beginning, and you would, through a series of things like going to the gym to work out more, or buying candy or something for this person to convince them to date you, and the goal of the game was to have them date you. He did well. There's nothing technically wrong with that. I did think it was questionable to submit that to College Board, the organization that ultimately has a say in how you get into college, but he did it. The less extreme example, 2 years ago, Heijin and Kaiwen both made beautiful sort of like they weren't visual novels in the same way that Kevin's was, but they were like feed the cat kind of sims, feed the cat sim, where you like you buy your cat a bunch of stuff, and that was really good. It worked. They did well in the AP, but the amount of work that goes into making each of these scenes is a labor of love, and you can do it. And visual novels are very funny. I love reading. I love seeing them that you make. It's very funny to me. Um, but they don't grade you on how cool your project is. They don't grade you on how complicated your scenes are. They grade you based on how well did you use functions to organize your code? How like how did you use variables effectively? Like, that kind of thing. They don't care like how many different scenes did you have? How much text did you have? Like, was I emotionally moved by the plight of your characters? They don't care. They'll laugh, but they can't give you points for laughter. So that said, Hayden and Kyber got 5. So I mean, like, and Kevin got a 4. So like, people try this every year, and some people have also tried it and gotten 3s. People have tried it and gotten 2s. So I mean, it depends on how well you can write about it. I would shy against it. Pattern games. So by this I mean like a memory game, like you flip over tiles and you have to see if it's the same thing. It's doable. I've seen people struggle with it in the past, but people have done it and done it well. Again, it's a similar thing to tic-tac-toe. You have to think about what does it mean to get a match, because the computer doesn't know that this is a train and this is a train. It doesn't know that it's the same picture. So you need to be able. So if you're going to do a pattern game, make it really, really, really simple. 3x3 grid max, so that you only have that many combinations to check. But that's still an insane number of combinations. We could do the math on it. Isn't it 7 factorial? Isn't it 8 factorial? No, don't listen to me. I'm tired. But it's a ton of combinations of things. Maybe it is. Anyway, whatever. Maze games are doable, but you have to think about what does it mean to run a maze. It's going to end up being the X position and Y position of your dude running the maze has to be inside the X position and Y position of your walls. There's no such thing as is touching wall. That doesn't exist. So, and it's hard to write. So you have to think about, people have done a maze game. They've done it successfully, but it's hard. So if you could do this, make a really simple maze. Guess the word games. So this I mean specifically something like Hangman. If it was like guess the word and compare it to a secret word, that's doable because it's fine. It's a little basic, but that's fine. I don't know really what that would look like. I guess you could have like a word bank. That's kind of tricky. Something with Hangman, it's okay. It gets complicated because you'd have to check like if the fourth. Oh man. If that like the letter you guess is the same letter as that one, then it'll show up. And I guess it's not that bad. You could make Hangman. I can see how you'd do that. Matching puzzle games. I think I actually accidentally talked about that in pattern games. What do I mean by pattern game? What do I mean by matching puzzle game? I forget. I think you get the idea though. Think through the logic of your game. Like if we go back to the beginning here, I won't make this too much longer. The logic of an internet quiz is really easy. You have some variables in the background that keep track of your score. You compare that your ending variable to some chain of if statements, and if they get within a certain threshold, then they're a Gryffindor. That's how they actually work. They just keep track of your responses and assign it a numerical value. Spot the difference games, really easy. You can just keep track of a score for the number of things you clicked on correctly. It's the logic of the game is easy. But if you start thinking something like tic-tac-toe, what does it mean to get 3 in a row? It's really hard to think about. These are some honorable mentions that I think are funny. Counting the amount of white rice in a plate mixed with different colors of rice. Quarantine's hitting some of us pretty hard. It's just funny to me. It's just funny. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's a great idea. I'm saying this is a smile. I am not mocking you in any way. You know who you are. I think it's so funny. I said this one for Haikyuu team. You don't need to. Come on. You don't need to say it's the volleyball anime to me. I love Haikyuu. Anyway, it's just funny. Whack-a-mole is just a funny idea. Whack-a-mole is doable. It's kind of like Color Sleuth. But you can make it easier. You don't have to have 2 players. Whack-a-mole's doable. Just don't put a timer in it. And if you want to put a timer, like it disappears after a certain amount of time, don't do that. Just don't do it. Anyway, I've talked enough. What are your main concerns about the create task? If you don't have any, that's fine. If your main concern is I don't know what I'm doing, you can write that too. We haven't talked about like the questions yet and what you have to answer, so that could definitely be a concern. I wanted to do that this week, but I wasn't really, frankly, feeling up to it. But we'll start that in earnest on Monday. So have a good weekend, everyone. Let me go to the end card. Have a good weekend, everyone. Hope you're all doing okay. Try to think of some cool ideas. Oh, geez, this video is long. Sorry. Bye.